Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In this video we'll be going through doing some retopology on this creature, going through a few of the options that are available in Blender. I am a 3ds Max user myself, but this time around I'm going to use Blender's a tool set to start retopologizing this creature. I've heard Blender is actually quite amazing at doing retopology, and 3ds Max is basically basically dying dying out in that field. So I've been a 3ds Max user for a long time, and I'm actually a bit disappointed with the tool set nowadays. So I'm just going to use Blender for it. I'm going to go through a few options that you got available and some of the the logic that I'm using to apply how I'm going to retopologize this model. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, let's get to it. So I've got my model imported over into Blender. It's got quite a bit of geometry to it. I would say about 600,000 polygons, but that should be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to, as I've said, we're going to retopologize the head, and we just basically need to go through a bit of a thought process of how we're going to tackle this, because the idea of the head is basically have its mouth closed or be able to open its jaws wide open and so on, just to have a look at these nice teeth over here. So it could probably even bite things off as well, or whatever we want to do. It's important that your retopology allows for that animation to happen as smoothly as possible. So let's just to begin with, let's just hide the teeth as we don't need them. And basically when you look here, you just want to really understand where does the jaw sort of start. I mean, this is not a humanoid type creature or something that's found in real life, but it does use a bit of a anatomy from a human skull, but obviously it's very, very deformed to the point of no recognition. But we know that this is a sort of a jaw right over here, and then over this side over here, this is the top of the mouth. So there would be bones inside there. I mean, it's a lot easier to look at the model on this side, where you clearly have these sort of bony structures around, and then you have the leathery skin in between. But over here it's all leather skin, all skin basically. So we'll start with the retopology process, and we'll go through where the loops should go, where we want our loops to go. Now we're going to start with quite a low resolution, and then we'll subdivide later on to add additional resolution to our retopology as needed, rather than adding just loops, whatever. So to start off, let's go by pressing Shift A on the keyboard, going to Mesh, and then selecting a cube. Now this cube, I'm going to press S on the keyboard to make it a lot smaller, which is fine. Then we are going to, I've got snaps on, so I'm just going to deactivate that. For some reason my undo takes a lot of time to process. I think it's just because of this model that I've got in the scene being so big. But right, so I'm just scaling it down again. Deactivate snaps up top here. So now we can move this cube into place. Again, we'll make it a little smaller, something like that should be fine. So this cube is centered in the the center of the world basically, which is fine. So now we want to go into we basically want to leave it in the center for now. We don't need to move the cube away from the center. So we'll press tab on the keyboard to go into edit mode. Press number 3 on the keyboard to go into face mode, and just select the front face. Then Control I on the keyboard to invert selection, press X on the keyboard and press faces, and that will delete the faces and just leave you with this plane over here. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that our plane is going to snap to this form. So the first thing we want to do is we want to activate snaps over here, and then click this arrow over here and make sure it's put onto face. Have this set to closest, project onto self, and project individual elements to be selected as well. Now once that's done, if we go by pressing 1 on the keyboard, if we go into vertex mode and we move it around, So we select the vertex we want to move, and then we press G on the keyboard. You can see how that's already snapping over to the surface of the model, which is, it's fine. Now, what I would do next is go over here into the properties of the cube and make sure you've got in front selected. So that means that whatever we do with this, it will always show in front, for us to see, always on top of this model. Let's also go and add a material. And in the viewport display, I don't know, make it more of a bluish color that will, it really depends on what you want, but something that you can, easily see, so that you can see, so you can make a clear differentiate between the high poly and this. Once that's done, we're going to go into the modifiers, and we're going to add a shrink wrap modifier. And with this added, we'll have to select this model as a base, as a mesh for us to sort of shrink wrap around. Now, our model over here is unselectable. So the first thing you need to do is go up over here and make sure you basically have the, what was it now? Oh, I can't remember now how I did it. But regardless of this, the filter over here will allow you to, so basically if you press this on the filter, if you press this arrow, it will be deactivated for you most likely. So if you press that arrow, it now allows you to basically go over to any model and press this key here, which now makes this model selectable, so that the worm body, which is this, is now selectable by us if we go out of edit mode. So because we got a selectable, when we pick this eyedropper tool here and then we select it, it will now set this model as the shrink wrap model. As the target model for the shrink wrap to unfold around. So once that's done, let's press this button over here on cage as well. So activate on cage. So that fixes the whatever problems we have here. And then press this arrow again to make the this mesh unselectable again. We will add a new modifier, which is the mirror modifier. And then with the mirror modifiers done, we're just gonna have to make this body selectable again, because we will do this. We're gonna mirror object. We're going to select this one over here. Make sure you got clipping on. And then once that's done, you basically are good to go and start modeling. So we're in our cube, we're in vertex mode. So as we drag this around, you can see how we can start moving some of these things across. So the first thing we want to do is we want to bring, we want to bring our model over like this. Okay, so you can see now it's basically mirroring anything that we do on one side can happen on the other side. Now I don't think having the mirror on at the minute is going to be very useful for us, because the way this happens is wherever you look now through the model, you'll be able to see it. See, from any side, you'll be able to see the retopology that you're doing. So the mirror is going to get in the way if you keep it on. So we'll just keep it off for now. But whatever we do on one side happens on the other side anyway, so that's good. And now we've got our plane in place. We can now start dragging it, but we need to decide what we're going to start, making our loops with. So with our vertex selected, we will, we can drag the whole model down. We can actually go out of edit mode and just press G on the keyboard and then just basically move it wherever we want. So you can see how it's already conforming. We'll press tab again to go into edit mode, and we will drag this, something like that around here, right? This is our starting position. If we activate the mirror very quickly, we can see that we're a bit far off from the center, so we need to make sure that these are exactly at the center. So what sort of loops are we looking for? Well, we want the loop to go around all the way to the back here, right? So that's the main loop of the, that sort of divides the symmetry of our model, the mirror of our model. And then we want to loop around the mouth, not inside the mouth, but outside of the mouth. and then we want, you know, from those points we want to go around the jaw here. So this is, let's just assume that this point over here is going to be the area that's going to close on itself when the mouth closes, right? So if you look from the side, this area over here will go up, or, you know, whatever, this side here comes down, but then this area here gets squished a little bit, right? So you see this bony part here is going to touch this area, and that will allow the mouth to close. So now with, you know, we need to put the first piece has to be centered precisely where we want it. As you can see, we've got this side over here that we're going to have polygons on, but we also have the top side and then whatever happens over here. And you can see how the nose sort of starts over here a little bit. So what we're going to do is, you know, going to pressing 2 on the keyboard to go into edge mode, we'll press E on the keyboard to extrude. And this is probably way too much of an extrusion. It really all depends on how big you want to go from the start. How big you want your resolution to be on or how small you want it to be on your model. So this is sort of the first landmark we put on, but we're not really that fussed about it. What we want to do is want to keep going with the mouth first. So I've just extruded again, go into vertex mode, drag a little bit, and then again go into edge mode and start adding this loop over here. So as you go along, you can see that basically your polygon is going to try and stick to the surface. Now, as you can see, we're not really, you know, the way the flow goes of the lines isn't exactly going to help us. So if we press R on the keyboard, we can rotate this a little bit, and also S for scaling, so we can try and scale it down a little bit. Now, our scenario is we want to reach this loop and go like this, you know, go over on this lip part here. So we'll just press G, go to edge mode, go to vertex mode, maybe something like that. Again, it's a trial and error all the time, so it's all about what you're looking for. So okay, just gonna go a little bit like that, and now we can start extruding over here. So again, just have a look over here as a continuation as to how many are you going to need. So for example, this side can go this way, but then over here we need one that goes that way, right? So we've got to account for that basically, and for the future. So again, we'll just keep on going this side. Yeah, like that. Rotate a little bit. And over here, we're almost going inside the mouth, which is not something that we want. So we're just gonna make sure that we actually come out of there. So just drag the vertices like this, go into edge mode. So you can see now we're sort of connected. Over here, there's gonna be another loop that's coming down. So again, we extrude. Sorry, I didn't mean to scale there, like this. So you can see where this sort of comes out over here. So we want to quickly do some, some nice lines. I think the size of the actual extrusion is actually okay. If we maintain it at this level, we should be able to cover any type of geometry going along. So see, just try and look for landmarks as you do this. And if you activate now mirror again, you should be able to see where you're going to basically intersect, which is very important as well to have this done. Right, okay, so as you can see, our size of these polygons here isn't as thick as the ones up here, but it's all about how the form looks like, because it's not always going to be the same. You're not always going to have the the thickness of the width of the polygons to be the same. So what we also want to do is see if we want to go with this line over, or we want to work on some more around the jaws and so on. So very importantly over here now is how do we what do we do over here? Do we want to basically go to, add a loop like this, and then once we have a loop we can start adding some more detail over here, or do we want to skip over on the loop and basically to be more rough and just go straight at it and just not really take into account these forms? But I would like to have as much detail of this model as possible, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that loop and wherever else it may be needed. It's very important to know when to add loops. Now here's the interesting thing. So we're not using poly build for doing our retopology, at least not yet. It's all really up to your preference. But most importantly is we want to create a polygon between these two edges, and there's an add-on for that you can use that's very useful. It's actually called Mesh F2. So in add-ons, when you when you're on your add-on page, just type in F2 over here, and it will find this add-on for you. So if we type it again, this is the add-on. Just make sure you tick it and install it, just like you would install any other add-on. And what this add-on basically does is when you select this vertex over here and you press F on the keyboard, it creates this polygon automatically for you that you can now drag and drop wherever you want it. So I think this is a very, very useful tool, just because of the possibility of the endless possibilities basically provides you. So as you can see over here, I've just combined two polygons into one, which is not exactly what I wanted, but it's it just shows you what you can do with this add-on. So as you can see over here, I can do this if I wanted to. So again, it's really all about where do you want your model to go. So we can create a branch over here, and what I mean by this is you basically are creating another loop that you're going to use later on. So just like that. So again, you see this form, how it expands over here. You may want to expand your your polygons as well with it, so that it makes more sense. The cleaner you work at these early stages, the easier it will be for your retopology going forward. Now I normally do my retopology in something like in 3ds Max. And I can definitely tell you that Blender is very, very rapidly becoming my new favorite tool on doing retopology and other such things, just because of how easy things are in Blender compared to 3ds Max. Everything seems to have a way better flow. Right, okay, so let's deactivate the mirrors and then just keep on going with this. So if we select that edge over there and press F, you can see how we can now create a new polygon over here. And then we select this one, we can make another one over here, and so on. So the freedom is definitely there, and it's very, very intuitive. We can continue this way as well. Sorry about that. And then we can do this if we wanted to. It's not very, very advantageous to not play around. If you just drop it wherever it generates it, just be sure that make sure that for organic structures you're actually accounting for all the small dents in the skin and everything, everything like that, if you want to go full on detail. So for example, right here, if we go this way, just like how I created that polygon there, and we keep on making it, we keep making polygons this way, we're basically covering a lot of details over here. It's only going to be showing on the normal map, and it's not going to be ideal. So what we want to do is maybe add another loop over here, and the reason why I added it like this is because I want to create this loop over here like this, right? So you can see what I'm trying to do. So what would be the point of this? Well, this is a hole in the face basically, and I want to capture that hole as much as possible and as much detail as possible. And especially when you're going to subdivide later on, that's going to look a lot more detail basically if you do it right. So in this context over here, we could potentially do something like this, which is obviously not the right thing to do, but we can extrude this side. We can then extrude it again, like so. And then we can also pretty much select that one and just do that. Now, as you can see, we're going to be creating triangles if we're not very careful. So again, you want to work on your whatever the logic of the model is. So if we, I'm just trying to show you some of the things to do. So right now we have created 2 triangles there, which we don't want. So what would be the better way to go around this? If you do that, you're going to have quads like so, but they're not very, they don't look very nice, these quads. And that's because we started with a loop that doesn't exactly close upon itself. And that's the problem. So, we'll select all of these and delete them and just try and figure out how to sort of tackle this. And an easier way to do this, it would be to basically construct it like so, rather than just jumping straight into it. Now over here, we've got two ways for this loop to go. So I'm just going to add a, Control R for a loop in there. And I'm just going to make sure that my two polygons are basically going in each of them into its right direction. So you got to take it slow when you don't know exactly where you're trying to go with this, but it's all about what sort of features are you trying to capture. So you see, if I do it this way, which is a slower way, I'm basically able to build a lot better loops around this model. So something like that. Okay, and now we want to basically do another one over here. We can do like so, yeah. And basically, if we, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. If we extrude this side over here, based on what we've done so far, we can pull these a little bit, and now we can have this one meet up, yeah, and then these two can connect. And then you see over here, this can connect as well, like so, yeah. Keep extruding these by mistake. Right, okay, so what we've got right now is, what we want to do is we either want to expand this way, yeah, or if you expand it that way, you can probably do something like this. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me just try and pull it. Okay, and that should be, now it's still doing it. You see, this is why it's doing that, because I do have these vertices that are basically okay, now it's fixed. Right, so we're just going to create another loop over here. And I didn't mean to create that one. Right, so let's see, we now have another scenario where we've created multiple polygons over here. We can say that this polygon from here can connect somewhere like that, which would make sense, because if we extrude this, for example, all the way over here, it would make sense for it to connect that way, which is fine. But then what we've got is we've got 1, 2, 3, and we've got 1, 2 on this side. So we could potentially just push everything a bit downwards, like that. And then we say, right, add a loop over here, and then do something like this. Delete that one, is obviously getting in the way. We do something like this. Probably need to delete that one as well, like so. And then you see, so now we have basically cleanly connected all of these together. If you want to move them about a little bit, that's fine. And then we've got this over here that we've now created. And this is not even going to give us any sort of a benefit. So I would delete these two together, and I would just start like this in bigger chunks basically. to add more detail, and right here I would just do that. So this is basically when you start speeding up your the way you're doing things. So we've got another hole over here, which again is going to complicate things a little bit. But before we even tackle that, we still have this area here that we haven't covered yet. So again, you want to sort of go like this. And I know it looks very boring, but it's actually when you're doing this alone and you've got your model that you want to like create some really nice topology for it, what you'll realize is that you're actually going to fall in love with doing this properly, just because of how much how much sort of satisfaction it will give you when you actually do your model justice. You know what I mean? It's basically when it looks very nice and you've done a good job on it, then you'll actually enjoy what you've done. So as you can see over here, we've got quite a bit of a hole, and I'm not really happy with what I've created there because I definitely need more resolution. But there's not a lot that I can do apart from adding a lot of loops over there. So what we'll do is when you get to a stage where you've retopologized a lot of your model, and you're going to add the subdivision modifier to increase that resolution, then you can go around and then start cleaning it up even more, because you're going to have a lot more polygons to work with. So I'm just going to keep on adding loops over here, adding polygons over here, and then once I do around, all the way to around this eye area here, then we'll just resume there for a bit. So we now started working on the eye side of things. As you can see, we've basically reached we've done the jaw part, and this is where we've got our polygons to bend. As you can see, there's quite a lot of polygons in here at work, so we should be able to easily bend that side now. Of course, once we add the subdivision modifier, which I could actually even do now, so you can see what the effect is going to be like. But if, for example, I'll add the subdivision surface and I actually want to move this above the mirror, if we look at it now, this is how many polygons, we're going to have quite a lot of polygons to work with. And in edit mode, if we press A to select all the polygons and we go to mesh, shading and smooth faces, now you can see how our model looks like. Now something has gone off right over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the subdivisions off and see what would be the case, what would be the problem. And the problem is always going to be something like a vertex that's not been attached to the other vertex. So quite easy to fix this. Just select the vertex you want to move to the other vertex. So in this case we've selected this one, and then we shift select the other one, press Alt M on the keyboard and select Add Last. And now if we reapply, if we activate the subdivision modifier, you can see that's looking okay and it's quite smooth. So this is basically how the the work we've done so far looks like. If we activate the mirror, this is on both sides now. We can then, for example, take this, this is basically what it's covered, so you can see it actually covers all the major features of this, and it bends quite well. Now bear in mind that the model that I'm working on is going to be something quite detailed, so in a very large scale as well, which then that means for me I need to have as much resolution on the low poly mesh as well, as possible for my for my needs. But this is based on a from a project to project basis, and hard surface models, for example, don't require as much detail as a organic sort of form. This is why, for example, characters in video games always have more polygons than the objects around them. So just because to get that nice smooth effect on everything, you do need to have a lot of polygons. Right, so as you can see now, I'm going around this eye area, and basically again just pressing F on the keyboard when I've got the mid vertex selected to create a bridge between them. And this is how fast this is. Now you could use the poly build option, so you just activate that one. you'll now see this blue arrow that basically comes around. So what that means is, so if I've got this edge in blue mode, and if I drag it, you can see now it's basically extruding, which is fine. And then if we hold shift and we go on top of this, well, we go into poly mode first off, press 3 on the keyboard, then we press shift, and if we go on top of this polygon, we can basically, well, the idea here was to delete this. So you can see when it becomes red, you can delete it. And in order to make the same thing as with the poly build, so we know when we select one of these vertices and press F, and it creates this bridge between them as a quad. In order for us to do the same thing with the poly build, you go over the edge that you want to do, keep control hold control, and then just drag this, and now you can create the same thing, right? I just find the normal option with pressing one of the vertices and then pressing F to be a lot more useful, just because it moves your vertex in the right place sort of already. A lot of the times you just need to like only drop it there, so whatever the algorithm puts it's okay, it's going to be okay. So this is quite a very, very fast workflow. So you can see here I've bridged these two, and actually that's a problem, because bridging those two means that I'm not going to catch this curvature over here. So instead I'm just going to keep on poly building, let's call it poly building, just because I do want to maintain this shape over here. It's all about what you aim to achieve, but this is basically what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to achieve my results. I like this curve, I want to keep it. It adds a bit of character, so to speak. So this is basically how we do the eye, and from this point onwards, actually pretty straightforward if you look at it, because we've only got large shapes to sort around. I mean, this area is probably going to be the more complex area of this part of the mesh. So I could just extrude around, try and go around like this, and you can see over here I'm just going to drop it like that, and that's the only thing that I'm going to do to that loop. And now we've got this one going around here. So if I select this edge, I go this side, right? And why did I go this side? Well, if I select this one over here and do that, I can basically, you can see how I can basically create more geometry like so, right? Just for more resolution. So I'm now multiplying my number of polygons that I've got available around. So, and this is very important, because you need to know when to start having more polygons in an area and when to start sort of trimming them down. So for example, this I want to have around here, and then as I extrude some more, I can now sort of end the loop like that. And again, so just have a look and see if that really works well for you, or do you need more higher resolution or not. It's really all dependent on when you want to add that higher resolution, if you want to toy with it right now or later on when you add more subdivisions. Now, the more problems you resolve at this stage, the easier it will be for you going forward, just because you won't have as you have already resolved some of the topology issues already. So try and be as thorough as possible right now at this early stage. So you see now I've basically got that shape done, and I'm now moving on out of the eye. For some reason, people believe that the shapes they create, they have to have some sort of uniformity to them, like all of your quads are going to have to be equal or whatever. I find that to be I don't know, yeah, sure, it's nice to have that, but actually it's just going to take a lot of time to achieve it, and the end result is going to be the same. So you want to have quads that are sort of equal in size, where your shape is going to change dramatically in terms of joints and so on. So as you can see over here, I do tend to have more polygons that are sort of matching each other in size, and that's important. But again, when you do the animation, you're going to see if you've got real problems or not, and you're just going to have to start making some adjustments then. This is why if you work from big to small, and try and keep everything as a, rather than as a permanent thing, try and keep everything as a modifier, then you should be okay to change your settings as you go along. So for example here, I've got this sort of protrusion, and I want to make sure that I capture each side of it. So maybe I'm going to have a smaller, thinner line through, just to cover, just to have that sort of curvature in there. That's going to look quite nice on the low poly, because the high poly will only look good if your low poly can sustain it. So just be very mindful of that as you go along. So anyway, well look, it's basically, I'm just going to skip now to even more advanced state, and you'll be able to see sort of how it evolves. But I think this is basically the best thing that the best way I can show you how to do retopology, because I think Blender has got the very simplistic but very useful tools on retopology, and it all makes sense. It's all a very nice and very nice flow. I'm actually quite pleased with the results that I'm getting with it. I think compared to 3ds Max, Blender's got it all figured out in that respect. So yeah, let me just show you how it looks like when we have a whole head finished, basically. So this is basically the model, well, the model head of our high poly. You can see basically the loops that are running around everywhere. They're not necessarily perfect or any by any stretch, because there's always more that you can do to improve the shape. So for example, you could even think about adding a loop here and just adding more and more geometry to it. But luckily, if like I've said before, if we add a subdivision surface modifier to it, and let's just bring it up here so it's affecting the side as well, because, well, actually it works anyway, but as you can see, if it's below the mirror, this is what happens. You get these sort of artifacts. So this is basically how it will look like now, which just really helps with the overall shape. And if you apply it, then once you did apply, you can actually start playing with the vertices again and just really get into there, like for example, making this hole be quite quite a big protrusion there, and so on. So you do this for the whole model basically as you go across, and then if you want, you can disconnect it later. So for example, I may want my model my low poly to run underneath this sort of bony part here, but then I'll actually be connected to the overall shape, because if I want to create animations for movement, which I will do for this model, for all these legs to move individually and so on, if I want this model to turn around again, I may want to create to disjoin the model without actually being seen, because I've got something else on top that's covering it. So it's very important you make your decisions early on in the process as to how you're going to tackle the project. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you learned something new. I do find Blender to be amazing at doing retopology. It's definitely a lot better than something like 3ds Max, and I am a 3ds Max type of person. I mean, I've been using it for over 6-7 years now, but it's not Blender is something that I've just recently tried, and I'm happy with the render engine, with Eevee especially being a real-time engine, and I'm happy with modeling overall. And so there's some things that 3ds Max does better than Blender, but there's a lot of other things that Blender just does so much better than 3ds Max, and one of them being the actual interface. It's a lot more useful and more intuitive. So I hope 3ds Max will in the near future get to that point. Otherwise I just don't see them surviving on the market forever in this state. So I hope you guys have a nice weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. So cheers.